Racial equality has been at the forefront of the United States policies since the beginning, with slavery, then moving to civil rights, then moving on to educational rights. In my thesis and in my video, I will talk about why colleges should not promote racial equality, because it diminishes educational merit. To begin with, I'm not a racist, and I believe that all people are created equal. By that, racial equality and preferences in schools should not even exist. If we focus on just one race or just a group of minorities, then we're not making equality. We're having a focus on one small group. According to consequentialism, max happiness of all, not just of one small group. Racial equality is not the max happiness of all, but instead a minority or a race. Not to say that someone as a race should not be admitted into schools, but that they should be admitted into schools not based on their skin tone or their race, because they can't change that, but rather their desire and their drive to get a good education. Pell speaks in racial equality and preference that those who are admitted into schools on racial preference and affirmative action alone are not being admitted based on what they are or what grades they have, but instead they're being admitted into schools because of social and political pressure. This does not help. Instead, it hurts. These students are being put in as lab rats to look like they are being the forefront, the poster child of racial equality. But instead they're getting in over students who have worked harder, have better grades, and can achieve more in this college. This is called or used as the ethical theory, the virtue theory. By definition, it means that we do things as humans because it is what's right, not because we are forced or told to. If schools are forced to have racial equality, then they're not doing it based on the sole fact that they want equality for all humans. They are doing it because they want humans and students to just do what the government is telling them to do. In another article, one speaks about hate codes and speech and how we should not use certain words or certain slangs in speech. I do not agree with certain words that are used towards certain races. But I also do not agree that the government or anyone else can take those words away from me. In the Constitution, we have freedom of speech. Therefore, I can say anything I want to, whether it offends someone or not. If the government takes away that fine quality that we have as a right, then what else may the government take away? We should not be told what to say, but instead be taught better. In an article, Pell talks about how we are all prejudiced. We are born into a prejudiced society. We are Homo sapiens, and Homo sapiens do not stick together in big groups, but rather small us versus them groups. By that, he says, prejudice is our life. We will be prejudiced towards something no matter what. We should not try to cover up prejudice, but instead work around it and through it. If we continuously focus on how races aren't having their rights in education, or how minorities aren't getting the same special treatments as others, then all we're doing is focusing on the negative and trying to make a light out of dark. And we can't do that. In consequentialism, it talks about max happiness. Again, if we focus on one minority and then they become the majority, what happens to the majority that became the minority? It's a circle. It's a constant cycle. And the only way that we can stop that is by teaching children at young ages to accept. And if they can't accept, then to be willing to be open-minded. It cannot be changed in college. By then our minds are set because of society and cultural rules. It must be changed somewhere in the beginning. It must be changed in elementary schools, in homes, and environments, in cultures, and in societies. Colleges should be equal, but not equal based on race. Equal based on your ACT scores or your SAT scores. Equality based on how well you did in college, how much you won it, your application, how hard you worked, and where you want to go with this education. Race should not even be included. If race is included and we're only accepting one on race, then someone who worked even harder, but because they weren't that minority doesn't get in, then how does that contribute to society? And how is that equal? A continuous focus on the past will get us nowhere. Focusing on the history and seeing what we can learn from is one thing. But continuously going back and looking at those who have been oppressed and who have been hurt is going to get us nowhere. We must take the lessons that we've learned in the past and move on to the future to make a better life for our society. By that, we must go and not have racial preferences, but have human preferences. Allow those to get into college because they deserve it based on merit, educational merit. Educational merit meaning that the grades that one has worked for, the life that one wants to live, and how they will contribute to our society. This is how education can prosper. Hate codes, speech codes, and racial preferences should not be a part of the educational system because it's just focusing on what is wrong instead of what we can do to make it right.